So is there any way of publicly shaming these politicians so they change their tune, other than this threat of they're not going to get our donations or our vote? Is public shaming in videos, for example?
It's hard to say. The political system is so corrupt in Ottawa right now, and it's the same in America and the United Kingdom. It's not like we're unique. It used to be you could publicly shame a politician by exposing them. But these days, I mean, unless there's the proverbial, what is the joke used to be? Unless there's a dead girl or a live boy found in the bed, you can't shame them. And these days, I don't think even that would bother them. So the idea of publicly shaming them because of their association with an Islamist group or with a front group for a terrorist, I'm not sure that's even possible because the standards of politics is so low. So again, the way to talk to them is money and votes.
Do you think, though, that shaming them publicly, they may not give a shit about it, but they may lose some of their constituencies, right?
It may help, and again, when you say lose constituencies, what you mean is people won't vote for them. Yeah. Just in the back there, and I'll come to you next.
I'm from Iran, and the stuff that you described, the organizations and the mosques and all of that, it's the exact same way that Islamists basically won a revolution.
Yes.
And that's exactly how they worked. Through mosques, very legally, through mosques, donations, religious donations, and all that stuff. And they spread their words, they're organized and all that. And they united with the communists of the time to basically learn how to organize very efficiently. Now, the difference is at the time, the government in Iran wasn't supporting them openly. Here, you have CBC and the government openly supporting these people. In your opinion, is this a war happening, war of ideology happening, and are we just in denial? Or is it just a case of very many people tell me, like, it's the pendulum, it's going to go here, and it's going to go back. In your opinion, should it be taken really seriously and we should really stand our ground and do something? Or is it just, hey, it's a democracy?
No, I think you're correct in describing it as a war of ideology. I think it's serious. I think it's global. The Muslim Brotherhood, for instance, has organized, structured, well-financed groups in 81 different countries. So to describe them as a global operation is reasonably fair. To go back to Iran, one of the things that often gets missed is when the Ayatollah Khomeini first became became the leader of Iran, became the jurist, as he would be called, the supreme jurist. He turned around and said nice things about Hassan Banna and the Brotherhood, even though it's a Shia-Sunni kind of split there. Strangely enough, Hassan Banna looked at the Shia and said lots of good things about them. So the Islamist ideology actually very effectively crosses the boundary between Shia and Sunni, which a lot of other things won't. You also mentioned the communists, of course, which is also true. Anywhere you find the Islamist ideology, you will find their leftist alliances. But what tends to be forgotten, and in Iran you probably know this, as soon as the Ayatollahs got into power, what did they do? They killed all the communists and they killed all the leftists because they recognized them as the greatest threat. The head of Hezbollah was asked, why do you, Mr. Hezbollah, party of God, Hezbollah, party of Allah, party of God, why do you deal with leftists? And the answer was basically, not my problem. They're convenient, I'll work with them. When the time comes for them to meet their maker, that's their problem, not mine.
So proof positive of Islam's deceit to gain power and take over countries, okay? This is one main aspect that will be exposed about Islam, that must be exposed about Islam.
So the leftist, cultural Marxist, progressive, common purpose, whatever you want to call them in the West, makes great cause with the Islamists. And they think it's, oh, look, we're revolutionary brothers, we're going to change the world. Without realizing if they ever win, they'll be the first one shot. Which I think is probably worth pointing out to leftists. They might want to study some of their own history is why they don't control too many countries, is because they get killed as soon as the Islamists gain any sort of an upper hand over them. Somalia, Egypt, Lebanon, Iran, any of those examples. You see Jeremy Corbyn right now, who is on the extreme left of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, making common cause with Hezbollah and Hamas. And I kind of laugh and think, well, have fun with that, Jeremy. If you ever go there, they'll kill you. But yeah, so that's a real issue. Should it be taken seriously? Yes. I have people say, well, Tom, it doesn't matter. When Muslims make up 50% plus one in Canada, give me a call and we'll see. And I always point out to them and say, well, you know, how many people does it take to run a government? How many people does it take to run a revolution? How many people does it take to overthrow a cause? The Nazi Party in Germany at most had 3% of the population when they took over the country, and probably half of those people were members of convenience. They joined because it's a good way to get a job. The communists in Russia were probably pushing 2%, but again, half of those were probably people who joined the cause just because it was popular or fun or it was a good way to get a job. Much the same can be said for any other political movement. You need a mass participation rate of 1 or 2% to physically change the course of government.
Now, if you look at the Islamic population of Canada, it's up near 10% now. And if you only need 2 or 3% to overthrow a government or overthrow a country, they're well past that. So this is why I really think we need to be worrying. Keep that in mind, that before thinking that they have all they have to do is overpower our population in numbers, that's not so. They have enough now to do it. Most cities and communities have Muslims running for office, which is elected, if elected, gives them control over us in the end. So you got to realize that, you know, one councillor here and one mayor there, it adds up to higher up elections, and they will control it. That's what their whole purpose is.
So yeah, it's something we should be taking seriously, and if we're not, we can look at France and Belgium and just say that's where we're going in the next few years.
Also, the continuation to that, Europe right now, do you see any glimmer of hope for Europe, or is it because mine is a bit grim? I think they're probably going to be a radical, basically cleansing at some point. Like some radicals will take over and just...
When I lecture on this kind of stuff, I talk about the Sixth Republic in France, which tends to get the French a little upset because they're actually on the Fifth Republic right now. My suggestion to you and to others is that France will carry on the way it is. It can do this for several years yet. But if there is a sharp, sudden economic downturn in Europe, which there will be in the next year or 2 years, because they always happen, and the next one's going to be ugly, during a time of economic downturn, this is when people's sense of humor tends to get a little stressed. France is already tense. They've got 10 to 15,000 troops on the street every day trying to maintain peace in France. So they have soldiers on the street every day.
And this is what's happening in Canada right now. You know, if we don't fight this ideology, we will descend into the same chaos as the EU and the UK.
10 to 15,000 of them trying to keep the peace. If there is a sudden sharp economic downturn in France, I think this is when we're going to see the actual conflict occur. And France will eventually produce a Sixth Republic, and it will look like one of two things. It will be the central government in Paris surrounded by a series of independent caliphates, which will become provinces, or the French Republic will disintegrate into all-out war, one or the other. I don't know which way it'll come out. I don't know who's going to win. But I genuinely believe that France, especially from Paris up to the Belgian border, Belgium, especially the capital region, are politically unstable and unsustainable in the current state. And there are people working daily to take advantage of that. And in Europe, I think Europe and in Paris and Brussels, that's where we're going to see the direction of history will be shaped there. Like the Gates of Vienna sort of story in 16, whatever, I can't remember, 16, whatever. 83, something like that, yeah. But that's I think where the next Gates of Vienna will be in Paris or Brussels.
And a question for you about the, talking to politicians or police and them talking to CARE. You say, well, they shouldn't really be talking to CARE, they should be talking to somebody else to get an idea. Who should they be talking to?
Muslim Reform Movement, Muslims Facing Tomorrow. Anyone who's not a member of an Islamist group would be a good start. Durham Regional Police, for instance, actually put their foot down about year and a half ago, 2 years ago or something like that. And Durham Regional just said, we're not talking to CARECAN and CCM anymore. We'll talk to anybody. We talk to a lot of folks, but we're not talking to those guys. The FBI did the same thing. FBI headquarters came out a few years ago and said, we shouldn't be talking to CARE USA because of the nature of the group. And that caused a huge upset in the FBI, especially when Obama was in charge. But anyway. But nonetheless, we're starting to see some police forces actually use police skills to try and assess who they're talking to before they start talking to them, and actually look behind the credentials to see what's behind them. So, for instance, the Canadian Armed Forces has a chaplain, Nadvi. He is the Amir of the Islamic Circle of North America, ICNA, and he is the chairman of the Canadian Council of Imams. Fascinates me because ICNA, in its own literature, says that Islam and democracy are not compatible. This is a founding principle of his organization. He believes in sexual slavery for women. He believes we should kill all the Jews. He believes we should kill apostates. And this is from material from their own website. It's not me saying this about them. It's not me accusing them of something. This is the material on their own website that they teach, that sexual slavery is all right, adulteresses should be stoned, thieves should have their hands cut off. All that sort of stuff that we say is stereotypical Islam, in fact, it's on their website, and they're not shy about hiding it.
So if you doubt what he or I are telling you, go to the websites and read for yourself. Or, better yet, read the Quran.
ICNA sisters were the people who brought the burqa case, or brought the burqa case or the niqab case to the Federal Court of Canada. So here's this guy who's a chaplain in the Canadian Forces, but he believes sexual slavery for women is okay. And I kind of sit there and go, hello, Government of Canada, maybe we should straighten this one out. We're either in favor of women having the vote and equal rights, or we're in favor of them as slaves. Let's pick one and go with it. Yeah.
Why is the armed forces so stupid?
I don't think the armed forces are stupid, although you might wonder on occasion, because I was in that mob for 15 years. But at the end of the day, this is political at the top. Somebody somewhere called... Somebody told the defense minister, this is the guy you want as an imam. You're going to have a Muslim imam. This is the guy you're getting. And I don't think they're allowed to question it.
Does that come from Trudeau?
I would have to think that comes from cabinet, yes. Because I can't see the chief of the defense staff hiring a guy saying, hey, let's get that guy in here because he likes sexual slavery for women, when at the same time the chief of defense staff is trying to run a series of campaigns against violence against women within the armed forces. So at the end of the day, this, I think, is a top-down kind of problem. I don't think this is a bottom-up problem. Same.
Are these police forces, is Trudeau telling, like, the OPP, this is how you treat?
I don't know. Well, the OPP works for Kathleen Wynne or works for the Premier of Ontario. But I think the question you want to ask, that's a good question someone should send to the Defence Minister and say, hey, Defence Minister, why does your Muslim chaplain believe in sexual slavery for women according to his own website?
Proof positive that they are basically infiltrating our armed forces and our military.
And why do you find this acceptable? And again, we get into this issue of cognitive dissonance. On the one hand, they say they're in favor of openness and democracy. On the other hand, they have an imam who says Islam is not, he literally says Islam is not compatible with democracy.
I never hear back because I try to cover the people. I never.
Yeah. Keep doing it because they're hearing about it. They're just terrified. How do they answer that? I mean, they can't answer it. There's no way they can answer it. So preface the email by saying, if I don't hear from you, I'm not going to vote for you next time. That would help a bit. Yeah. Sir?
This might be slightly tangential. You can correct me if I'm wrong on anything. But so what I see is the speech laws or hate codes or whatever we have don't seem to do a good job of sort of clamping down on radical Islamist theology or preaching. So I think the point of this was to say, like, everyone free comes from our rights. So what do you think constitutes a greater threat to our freedom of speech and, I guess, free expression in Canada? Would it be sort of the hate speech laws, which are more federal, or more provincial discrimination laws that can be, I think, litigated through the tribunals?
The greatest threat to our freedom of speech, I would say, is political correctness.
Exactly what myself and millions of Canadians have been saying, that the left uses more political correctness to counteract the political correctness and to stop our attacks on their ideology. And the main ideology is PC, right? It's kind of like throwing gasoline on a fire when you look at it. It doesn't solve anything, right? So that's just one way we can look at it.
That aura or that weight hangs over our society that everybody prejudges their speech now on, oh, I might offend somebody, so I can't say anything. That's probably our greatest single threat. To answer your question slightly more directly, yeah, I think the provincial tribunals are the kind of thing that can actually hunt you down and come after you much more effectively than on the federal level. Because I know I worked for the RCMP for a while, and we used to get these things every now and again with claims of hate speech or claims of this or claims of that. And at the federal level, to get a hate crimes charge to stick, not only do you have to say something which is interpreted as hateful, like, I hate those guys over there and I think their parents are monkeys, that is not sufficient. At the federal level. The law also says you have to advocate something to go with that. In other words, I hate all those people over there because their parents are monkeys, and by the way, we should kill them all. So identifying a group and singling them out for race, color, religion, orientation, place of origin, language, whatever, is part A. Part B is they actually have to say, I recommend killing all of group X. Most people in Canada who are involved in this kind of thing, who make these kinds of statements, are smart enough to say, well, I hate that group over there, and then they go right up against the line and don't touch it. Because they're smart enough not to advocate actually killing them, with the odd exception, of course, of the Dundas Street Mosque and the mosque in Quebec. And then, again, I don't know if you notice, when the heat does get put on them, they go, oh, well, you didn't understand the translation. Oh, you didn't understand. It was taken out of context. Oh, well, that was just a young guy who was kind of, he was a little wild, you know, don't worry about it. So my answer to that is, and the book I have coming out next month actually has a chapter on exactly this, is to say what is being taught in these mosques is not a bug, it's a feature. When you look at the imam of some of these mosques that are doing this, the imams are from the University of Medina, which is Wahhabi U. They're part of the IUMS, the International Union of Muslim Scholars, which is run by Qaradawi, which is a brotherhood outfit, which is a listed terrorist group in most of the Middle Eastern countries. So what you actually have are imams who have Wahhabist education, who are preaching on behalf of the International Union of Muslim Scholars, which, as I said, is a listed terrorist group in a bunch of countries. But that is not enough to get our government to move. When people say we should change the law, it's like, no, we have the laws. We should try enforcing them now again. And there is enough available at the provincial and federal level to go after these guys, but you're never going to see a premier move to go after them, or a attorney general. So, for instance, the Attorney General of Ontario, what's his name, Nakvi, is going after this guy because he was offering money if someone would expose who's what prayers are being taught in schools. Yeah, there's pictures of Nakvi out there in Ottawa with a Hezbollah imam. So I kind of look at it and go, if you're going to be the Attorney General and tell people what they can and can't say based on the law, perhaps it would be good if you're not hanging out with Ali Sabeti. You know, so maybe this kind of has to go both ways. Somebody may want to raise that one with Mr. Nadvi and go back at him.
Sorry, but yeah, we'll actually be ending the session, so we'll be on to the next meeting.
Oh, okay. So I guess one last question from the front row, and then away we go.
The conference is apolitical, therefore you should be apolitical in your answer to this. But which party would be best to address this issue? It's clearly not the Liberals and the NDP, with Mr. Mulcahy getting a new one. They have not been very supportive of addressing it. Would that mean the Conservative Party is the best party to address this?
I think the Rhinoceros Party.
I remember those.
Seriously, I am apolitical, actually. I mean, I'm ex-military, I'm ex-intelligence, I work for police forces, and I've lived in Ottawa for 27 years. And one of my thoughts on politicians is they all claim to be different. Oh, this party is different from that party. We're not like them guys. 2 years into power, I can't tell the difference between any of them. And I've sat through cabinet meetings in Ottawa. I've testified in front of Parliament. At the end of the day, I think that the party that has been worst, actually, let me back up. The party that was targeted first for entryism, in other words, Islamists joined the party in order to gain political influence, to gain for their own cause. In other words, classical communist entryism, was the NDP. They probably suffered from this first. The Islamists gave up after a while because they realized even if they could run the NDP's not going anywhere. Or so it seems. Sorry to say that, but I mean, at the federal level, the NDP has never formed a national government. The party they went after next were the Liberals and the Conservatives. They have found a bit of success in the provincial Conservative Party, which has its own problems right now, but where they found a home was within the Liberal Party. So they once they pushed on all three doors, which they did do, the door that moved the easiest for them was the Liberal Party, for a variety of reasons. Now, some of my best sources in all this stuff are actually Liberals, and there's many Liberals who are horrified at what's happening to the party, and they sit in the back row of Parliament or they sit in their homes and they watch this stuff and they're just horrified at what's happening, but they can't find a voice. So at the moment, I would say the party suffering the worst from entryism is probably the Liberals. But having said that, all three parties have the same problem. It's just a matter of degrees. It's not a matter of actual difference.
We made one point that the Liberal MPs seem to be objecting to this at some level without saying much. Fear of losing a position, that sort of thing.
Yeah, backbenchers, I mean, this is a whole other discussion on the power of backbench in Parliament, the power of committees. Backbenchers and committees used to have power in Parliament, even back as late as the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Now they don't. It's become executive federalism with an executive leadership. So anyway, I'm getting the high sign here that we're being turned off.
What's the name of your book?
The title of the book, the working title is Submission, the Danger of Political Islam to Canada.
And as I've been saying, like, we have a multi-one-party system, okay, that is globalist controlled. The globalists encourage all parties to adapt, inserting Muslims that will eventually overthrow the entire country and the governmental structure, which is why I stand by Max Bernier. He is the only non-globalist candidate that we have. He is the only hope to save Canada, and you can believe that or you can not believe it. I'm telling you, that's what I believe. That's my opinion. I can't sit here and make opinions for other people, but I will say that, you know, this is happening. This is not some theory or idea or, you know, maybe it's happening. It's happening. We are being invaded, okay? And it has nothing to do with, you know, one caravan it has to do with the millions of border crossers coming across the Quebec border. Okay, and I had people pissed off at me for saying that Quebec had turned into pussies. Well, all provinces have turned into pussies. We have a couple of million good patriotic Canadians in this country, and the other 33 million are all pussies and basically cucked liberalized bitches. And they better wake up quick, because we don't have much time left. We have 1 year to save this country, if we even have that. So you have to look at the bigger picture, and I think if you do, you will see for yourself. Do the reading. Go to the websites that Quiggin's talked about, and read for yourself what they're saying. You know, what they're saying in public and what they're saying on their websites are two different things. They're making themselves look all moderate and all, you know, we're here, you know. No, this is, you know, that's where I disagree. There is no such thing as moderate or extreme. There is basically, they all read from the same book. The only ones I would say that I would be willing to even talk to are ones who have gotten away from their religion altogether. And there are many of them, okay? And so they're no longer Muslims. They're just people of that country or that country. Say Iranian or Iraqi or, you know, which Syrian, whatever. But as long as they've walked away from that religion or have turned into Christian, I would talk to them. But do I trust any Muslims? No. That's me, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. You make your own decisions on what you're going to do. But I tell you right now, I don't trust any of them who read out of that book, because the Quran is not good. You got to realize that Quran was made 700 years after the death of Christ. So how can that be the real God and ours is fake, right? It's all a game. It's a fucking head game. And if you don't clue into it, you're going to fall into it, and you're going to fall to it. Because it's like Tom Quiggin says, the minute they take over, they're coming for you. They're going to cut your fucking head off, or they're going to throw you off buildings or whatever. They want to throw me off a building, I know that. And every other LGBT person. But no, they're going to kill us once they don't need us, okay? So they only need us to achieve that status. And that's why I don't trust them. So I want to give a shout out to all my subscribers, my new subscribers. Thank you for joining, and all my viewers. Every one of you makes such a difference to this channel, and I hope that we can carry it forward and get more people subscribing, and you know, hopefully I can hit 1,000 and start doing some really good live streams. And that's my goal. So have a great day, and we'll chat soon.